Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast, the leading podcast in consumer goods and retail, at least in Europe. 28,000 followers on LinkedIn, not too bad. I'm Daniel Torres, and I'm connecting today from a sunny afternoon in Barcelona, which some of you may think it's the normal thing, but actually, as of this year, it's the exception. It's been very rainy, which is actually good because it means that we won't have a drought for at least a couple of years. Yeah, it's been an exciting start of the year. Actually, we've had been around CES, NRF, Shop Talk Lux, and we actually have our own event, Candid Commerce, coming to London on April 30th. So we will leave the link in the show notes. So make sure to join. We'll be joined by some of the top voices of the industry. And as you know, my promise is, one, you'll find a room full of brands and retailers. Not people selling things. There'll be some people selling things, but not many. And secondly, you know our style. It's more the candid type of conversations. That's why we call it Candid Commerce. We try to avoid the cliches. We try to avoid the high-level conversation without much substance. So that's what we go for. And actually, my commitment to you is that I'll do a demonstration of that no fluff and substantial conversation with our guest today. Because I'm joined with somebody that I would probably call close to like a business friend at this stage. We've known each other for a few years. We hung out last year in Shop Talk here in Barcelona, which we can talk about as well. And I'm very happy that he's finally joining me here on the show. And it's no other than Richard Jones, who's the Global Director for Go-to-Market Transformation at probably the best beer company in the world, Carlsberg. How are you?
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I'm really well. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a little bit early in the day for a beer, but yeah, Friday.
It is a Friday. It is.
Yeah.
And now you have all these options, right? Of non-alcoholic beers. So
I know.
we have a mutual friend that works at Carlsberg. Actually, we can say who it is because he was on the podcast couple of years ago. Russell Close. When I went to visit him one time, it was morning, like well in the maybe 10 in the morning, and he was like, "Oh, you have to try our amazing Brooklyn lager 0.0." So it was very good. It was an interesting experience to have that for breakfast.
Special effects, I think it's called. I know. Yeah, it's a great product.
Yeah, it is. It is like you would, and maybe because of the extra hoppy flavor, you would never say it's a alcohol-free beer. Actually, very good product. But yeah, you and me coincided in Shop Talk Europe last year in Barcelona at one of our events. That was a lot of fun. We also had Russ and other friends there.
Yeah, we did, and it sounds like our relationship revolves around alcohol because it was. I remember having a glass of cava with you that night.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, whoever knows me knows I mean, I don't need to. I know I don't. I can have fun drinking and not drinking, but hey, in the evening when I'm around people that I like and I'm having a good time, you know, it always makes me happy to share some cheers, right? I mean, it's always good for the atmosphere. But anyway, so you're working at Carlsberg now. Tell me how you've, like, you know, my background is in recruitment, and recruitment we talk about, you don't choose to go into recruitment, you fall into recruitment. How did you fall into FMCG?
How did I fall into FMCG? Wow, Daniel. Well, I'm going to go right back to I actually did a geography degree. Now, what am I now doing? You know, working in the beer category.
I love geography. You know, I know practically all the capitals of the world.
So, I mean, I came out of university, and I remember my father said to me, "Oh, you'll be a great teacher, Richard. You should go into teaching." And I was like, "Oh, it's not going to pay enough." So, I fell into sales because it was one of those things back in the day. You know, you got your company car and got some free product, and I came up through the sales track working.
But how? In what moment? Like, tell me exactly, like, in what moment you were like graduating from uni, or whatever. I don't know what you were doing, and you went to FMCG. Like, in what moment, like, did Rich and FMCG get together?
Yeah, it was one of those where you're putting your CV out at the time, and I did have a deep curiosity around consumer behavior. So if I'm completely honest, I was applying for like advertising agencies at the time, anything that was related to sort of consumer goods. So yeah, food companies, the food industry,
And who took a bet on you?
and yeah, they took a bit of a bet on me. My first job was selling things like Hovis bread and Bisto gravy here in the UK, good household brands. And so I went up through the sales track, field sales, managed Tesco for a period of time, and then I went to do an MBA. I had enough of just pure selling, and I wanted to become more of a generalist, general manager. So I did an MBA.
You were too in the grind, I imagine, no? Like,
Yeah, although I look back on it, like what I learned in those early days working in sales, like they still hold true today. Being able to handle objections, put in a compelling selling story. Calling on a convenience store in the centre of London, it's the same skills that you often need when you're calling on a major global retailer as well, to have that sort of resilience and ability to listen to their needs and so forth. So yeah.
it's one of these things that you wouldn't want to do again. But if you hadn't done that, you would, today,
Well, I don't know. I still enjoy going out with our field sales teams,
Yeah, but now you choose when you do it now. It's a different dice. So then you did an MBA, and I think you went into consulting or an agency, right?
I did, you're right. Because I thought MBA was going to set me up for the big dream to be a consultant, and I could drop in and solve everybody's strategic challenges. And I did a couple of years in consultancy, and I learned so much in terms of strategic thinking, putting frameworks and um, tools, and that's when technology started to come into my remit as well. So it was coming out of that period of time in consultancy that I then joined Mars as the global e-commerce lead at a time when e-commerce was very, very small.
Tell me about that, because you started working in e-commerce and in FMCG in 2011. I started recruiting in 2013, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing in e-commerce. Like, you remember that the conversation was, yeah, will we sell more in key accounts, or will we actually do direct to consumer? Like, that was like a really real option. So what was the scenario like for Mars in digital in 2011, January 2011, according to your LinkedIn? And yeah, what was the scenario like?
Well, this is where I have to pinch myself, because I look back on those days, and the challenge at the time was, how do we get this bag of yellow M&Ms onto that retailer's website? And it was as simple as that. I mean, we talk about content today, but how do we get a bag of yellow M&Ms onto a retailer website? And I look back at that and the journey we've been on, and the world of AI that we live in today, and the amount of content that's generated. Yeah, to answer your question, way back, it was as simple as.
No, it's good. I remember those days. I mean, it was basically like when people were establishing e-key account, or e-tailing as they call it in some companies, e-tailing teams. And then you spent like 5 years in that role, which were, from 2011 to 2016, it was like day and night practically, no?
Yeah, it was. The role was. It was fantastic, because it literally was 0.5% of our global net revenue at the time, and it was a very small part of the business, but it was a space that was in rapid growth. And my role was about influencing general managers, sales directors, marketing directors around the world to take it seriously. Is probably the phrase. Put some resource of investment behind it. Let's start to build it up.
They probably told you that what you were preaching to them at the beginning was right, no? Like, you must have had some.
I was a believer back in those days, and I was just trying to get more believers in this growth space that has now become such an important part of our industry.
Yeah. And what about, I know that later you did this for 5 years, then you moved to the US for,
Yeah,
how did that come about?
I was incredibly honoured because off the back of my doing that role at Mars, that was a global e-commerce lead role, I was then asked to relocate out to the US. And for 6 years, I led our e-commerce business in the operating market, our number one operating market in the US. And we rapidly scaled e-commerce. I mean, at the time when I moved out there, it was around about 1% of sales of our 7 billion organization out in the US. And it scaled to almost 10%. Yeah, over those 6 years that I was out there, it was brilliant. You know, from working with Amazon, you know, pure play retailer, selling candy on that platform, to working with the Walmart.coms of this world, and even all the food delivery platforms, the DoorDashes of this world. It was, yeah,
Yeah,
quite a journey.
for 6 years in which were very transformational. Some retailers went up, some went down, DTC experiments, and then
Yeah.
how I would go. How did Mars manage to retain you for that long when you were obviously very like hot merchandise? Like you in 20, I mean, everybody kind of knows who was in e-commerce in 2013, right? Because it was like one kind of person per company, right? We all know that. We all know who they are. You know who you are.
Oh, it wasn't too difficult for them to hold us. You know, us Martians, we love our Mars business, and yeah, I was very committed to the organization.
Yeah, which is an interesting one, no? And I think maybe I don't know how it is now, but I remember like through COVID, there was a moment where there were so many people working remotely that then like kind of cultural attachment and commitment to companies, I think, was faded away.
Yeah.
When there was you remember it seems like a joke now, but you remember the Great Resignation?
Oh, oh, so vividly those times, because I think particularly working in the digital commerce space, all of a sudden, literally overnight, it went from being 5-6% of our business to, joking aside, you know, 50% of our business, because everybody was ordering online. So
Yeah.
I remember those times very, very vividly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would the experience like to like be in such a exceptional moment in the world, in you in New York, which was like really like a bad situation, but at the time having like such a hectic, stressful, but at the same time like wonderfully interesting experience at work.
Yeah, yeah. I I probably look at it through you know, from the professional side of things. You know, look back on those times and rapidly just setting up virtual calls, and how could we drive engagement of the team in a virtual world? They were the important questions that Mars was having.
Yeah.
And then from a kind of a path to purchase question, how do we start to shift investments, you know, call it from the physical world to the digital world, to make sure we were connecting with people along their pattern, their new overnight path to purchase that had rapidly changed. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was equally a little bit weird what was going on, wasn't it? When we look back on it, yeah,
Were
yeah.
you managing people in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I had a big team at the time. Our digital commerce team had scaled to over, what was it, around about 25 people. So, yeah,
So how did you do it from a management standpoint, like going from seeing people in the office every day? I maybe you had some people like in Seattle or whatever, but like not at FaceTime. How did you manage to like as a leader?
yeah, I look.
Or you don't really remember because there was so much going
I
on?
know. Well, yeah, it's a great question, because I probably haven't stopped to reflect and look back on it a great deal. But you know, one of the great principles at Mars was always, you know, we talked about team engagement, and you know, you have some amazing talent at your disposal, and engagement was the number one thing. We've got this change of environment, and everybody's lives is being impacted in a different way. So, how do you look to your team for the ideas of how we can keep everybody engaged? That was probably the first step. And then the second step was, you know, ultimately you still got your KPIs, performance, metrics that almost overnight have been blown up because there's a massive shift in consumer behavior and how people are purchasing their products. So there was probably then just, looking to the team about how we set our new strategic near-term objectives to make sure we're keeping ahead of the competition and we're meeting consumer needs. And does that make sense? So it was kind of an engagement, and it was
And it's always with so much going on at the same time.
so crazy. Yeah, no,
Like you have to lead people, but obviously it's a time there things were shifting so fast that you have to take decisions. Otherwise, would be more like consensus driven or love it from like a leadership standpoint. I think it was an exceptional moment. I think that we don't speak enough. I think we should like do more like a review of like how people like you that were in a leadership position. I mean, not because it's gonna happen again, but I don't know. I think it's just an interesting topic, you know.
yeah, agree.
How since you've been in the in e-com since like the early days in FMCG, how what role do you see e-commerce having in currently in FMCGs? Like from maybe more like a theoretical, philosophical, analytical perspective. Like what role are you seeing they having and what role do you think they should actually have?
I think, and I know we talked a little bit about this at Shop Talk, and I've got some quite well, strong's probably the wrong word, but I've got some very clear views on it. I think for a long period of time, digital commerce has probably been seen as I call it a channel or a vertical to sell products in. And digital for me now is a fundamental enabler for, not just sales and marketing, but for an entire organization. And I think it's trying to understand, um, certainly through the functional lens of it being more around demand creation and sales and marketing, that digital is is uh, is more than just digital commerce. Like, you'd find it very hard to find a consumer in this world that was 100% purchasing in digital commerce. It's just a choice amongst different places to buy your products. So um, digital commerce very much now is I call it's part of the fabric of the commercial organization, and it goes hand in hand. So when I think about the role that I'm leading today, it's where does digital play a role to help us enable selling more products, and that covers a broad spectrum of call it stuff, everything from traditional e-commerce all the way through to Salesforce enablement tools that are helping our sales reps on the ground when they're calling our physical stores make informed choices and decisions in the moment to help them sell better. Leverage AI when they're in there, through image recognition to make sure the execution is absolutely spot on. So, Daniel, if that answers your question, like, I think it's dangerous for businesses today to just see it as a channel and a vertical in their business.
So what do you think most companies are doing?
That there is,
From what you're seeing out there, shop talks, conversations.
yeah, I think there is, and there's an element of a lag time here of it playing through to what I've talked about, that digital becomes more of a part of the fabric, or call it the DNA of sales and marketing in general, versus it being a channel. But I still think there's a lot of us that are just seeing it as a channel.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think as well. That there's still a lot out to be done. You were talking about your role now, and that's an interesting one because somebody looks at your LinkedIn profile, which by the way will be in the show notes as it always is. If anyone wants to spy on you, which I actually recommend for more context. And if you look at your titles, they're all digital, omni-channel, e-com. But now for the last year, you've been the global director of go-to-market transformation. What does that mean? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. So it comes back to your question and my answer just previously. The role as it stands today that I'm leading is all about building that next frontier of capabilities to enable us to sell more. and digital touches many of those capabilities that we've got to build. So coming back to my point around digital commerce as a channel stroke vertical, yeah, that's one of the transformation capabilities that I'm leading and supporting. And then it goes all the way through to, I talked about Salesforce enablement, and automation tools for our sales reps that are going into physical stores, everything through to, value management and AI to digital, and how that's enabling us to make quick decisions around pricing and promotions and optimizing our mix. Um, Even a big play for us at Carlsberg at the moment is looking at B2B. A large proportion of our business goes through B2B. How can digital help us in that space, both digital commerce, but equally the back end, so technical services. We have a large technical services team that is quickly being digitized, because the end user wants to be able to, um, a customer service support that's rapid, in the moment, seamless.
Yeah.
And so we're building digital technology around that as well. So yeah, that's my role. It's a lot of stuff. You know, across many digital touch points that help us to sell more
No,
effectively.
no. And I think it's been interesting because like the type of technical capabilities that were expected that FMCGs would build to do a potential direct to consumer play, at the end they're actually being used for like this EB2B play, right? Like having a marketplace with small stores, because you have like this huge capillarity, especially like in food and beverage, where you're selling, of course you're selling to like big accounts, but you're selling on trade, which is decentralized trade through distributors, and you're also selling to small stores. So instead of going through a distributor, you sell online directly to the stores. Or I think what's actually not happening, that's not happening so much. It's more like your distributors that you would normally have to talk to every single one of them for transactional stuff. You can actually now enable them digital for them to take orders there, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's like really changing the game. And that's why I think food and bev companies are like the leading companies in this EV2B space because of this capillarity, no?
Yeah, yeah. You're talking like an expert, Daniel, but you're absolutely right.
But we've done over 300 interviews, so hopefully I've learned a thing or two.
And ultimately,
You can become an expert without even knowing. Where are my job offers to join the industry? I haven't seen any.
well, and ultimately, as I hear you talk, what it boils down to is, the organizations that are going to win are those that can be customer centric, and you've got to be what I call micro customer centric. So, understanding the needs of each individual outlet, and how they can best interact with you as a business, as a brand, and to be able to sell to them in the way that they need. And that's what digital allows you to be. In a world that's moving so fast and needs agility at the end of the day, you can't, speed, agility is a competitive advantage. And that is what digital is giving us today at Carlsberg.
And how are you seeing like digital empowering, like, for example, sales reps?
Yeah, hugely,
And how important are sales reps for a business like Carlsberg?
it obviously varies by geography, by region, by market. Some markets are more, call it modern trade and established, where the feet on the street is not as big as some of our more indirect markets.
Yeah.
Call it. Um, but when even if you just wind the clock back, what, 12, 18 months ago, where it was still traditional order taking, almost, pen and paper, call it. We're rapidly investing in this space to enable both, from an order taking lens on a digital platform, but also from an in-store execution lens of being able to leverage image recognition to help those reps make immediate, in the moment decisions on how they can better merchandise and optimize the consumer shopper experience. It's almost like night and day, Daniel, if I'm
And
honest.
he's talking in a space of 12, 18 months already, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about every market
No,
we
but like,
operate, but
it's been like
yeah, yeah, a rapid shift, that's playing through in terms of the results that we're delivering.
and how are you seeing like this, the fact that they're more like digitally enabled? Is that like having a detrimental effect in the like personal relationship between the sales rep and the retailer?
From the observations I've made in the markets I've been recently working in, I'd say it actually enhances those relationships because you're helping that retailer. You know, going back to my analogy at the start of this call of calling on the local convenience store and my days of selling, it was being able to make decisions quickly for them. They're under so much time pressure, and that, you know, their profits are being squeezed on a daily basis. That hasn't changed, and digital's allowing our sales reps to have those conversations, but in a more efficient and effective way. So I'd say it's strengthening the relationships.
Oh, okay. And I guess is there like a data play as well in this, that through digital you get more data and then you can like
Up there.
more like the category, and you know the obsession of FMCG is now be that category leader, I guess. Does that help towards that as well, I imagine?
Yeah, 100%. You know, whether it's at an outlet level to understand, you know, which outlets are high potential, or have more opportunities to be able to broaden our distribution, our coverage of our products. You know, that it's having that ability or the capability to leverage that data, though. That's the kind of key question, Daniel.
That's the next frontier.
Yes. Yeah.
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 And because that's the thing, like your products, you can buy them in modern trade, traditional trade, online, like everywhere basically. How do you see that in terms of like the customer journey as well in a digital world?
Mm.
Like,
It's
yeah.
Well, the where I'll jump in is we've recently done some consumer research just to understand how the behavior of buying beer has evolved, call it, and then it's more impulsive than a lot of people would think. And where I'm going with this is the emergence of, yeah, call it food delivery platforms, on demand delivery, as people's behavior changed to more in-home premise drinking. It might be 6 o'clock on a Friday evening when someone decides, in actual fact, they want a beer delivered to their home, whereas, you know, previously, historically, they would have just gone down to the local pub. How do we make sure that we are just uh, a finger touch away on a mobile phone to be able to get that delivered within 15, 30 minutes, and to meet that occasion and that need for drinking beer and not miss out on that opportunity, in making consumers happy. So does that make sense? It's trying to understand those consumer occasions, and then
Yeah.
how do we meet that demand? And digital becomes an enabler of that.
Yeah. So it's breaking them up and more like putting yourself in the eyes of the consumer, of like okay, when am I gonna want to buy a Carlsberg product, and how is Carlsberg like making it easy for me to buy it? Like,
So yeah, you've got it. So yeah,
that's very interesting. What about retail media? How do you see it? Like, because that's been a big topic, and it still is a big topic. Like, I was interviewing Kiri Masters and Adam Smith from Iceland the other day together, and we had an interesting discussion around that. It started like it seemed like a fad, but like after like 4 years of being fattening, right? How do you? By the way, that episode, I'm not sure if it will be released before or after this one, but anyway, if you've listened to it, if you haven't listened to it, listen to it, and if it's not released yet, wait for it. Yeah, how do you see like the whole retail media?
I like it.
Right, because sorry, I think that in the retail media debate, one thing that annoys me is that whenever I go to an event or podcast or something, I always feel like it's only the retailers and the tech solution speaking. I don't feel like the brands, people like that have been spending money on retail media like you, get a voice in the debate.
I like your use of the word fad because it's almost like when you started out this conversation, you talked about me being in e-commerce, what was it, 12, 13 years ago? And it was e-commerce was a bit of a fad.
Yeah.
And I think the retail media space, again, you're talking to someone, well, and yourself, we're believers. And I think what shifts a fad into something being a reality, and ultimately it's the data and the facts that go behind it. And I think the quality of the data now that's starting to come through to prove out the return on that investment, how you can leverage it to really target relevant audiences in the right place at the right time, drive conversion, or, in some cases, we're doing a lot of work now that it's leveraging retail media more through a proximity play on their way to, if they're going to a big event, a cultural event, or to a festival, for example. Our Brooklyn brand that you mentioned earlier on is a sponsor at Glastonbury. Or you can leverage, in ride, taxi ride marketing capabilities to target those people. So to answer your question, that fad is now certainly at Carlsberg becoming deeper embedded into our DNA and the fabric of the organization.
Is it still difficult to get marketing involved into the conversation? Because I think that from marketing, look, I'm telling you, like retailers and ed tech have like 90% of the conversation, and then it's like e-commerce people, the trade marketing people on the brand side. Marketing are like kind of very silent in this debate.
Yeah. The way we look at it, there's a combination of market maturity, where I'd say that the marketeers um are leading that next frontier, as you called it. So they're experts in this space, combined with a global marketing team that are rapidly accelerating, driving focus, leading pilots in major markets around the world. Some of the work that we're doing in Asia at the moment in this retail media space, where the data is so rich and we can really prove it out. The role that global brings to that, to then pass on to markets that are at an earlier stage in their maturity to embrace it. I think it's a really good recipe that we've got at Carlsberg of blending that global local approach to retail media. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know that there's a famous last question we have here, and it's coming now, which is, if you went back to yourself, as you were starting your career, when you fell into FMCG somehow, and you had to give yourself one piece of advice with everything that you've learned until now, what would it be?
I knew this was coming, Daniel, as well. And for me, I tell you what, I've got a teenage son that I pack off to school every day, although he packs himself off these days. And before he leaves, I say to him one thing, and it's listen, learn, and laugh. And I think the one piece of advice I would give myself starting out in FMCG was to probably embrace that a little bit more in the earlier days of listen to other people, get perspective, build that richer, holistic perspective of an organization, of a category or a challenge that you're trying to solve for, and never stop learning. So the listen, the learn, the laugh, never stop learning. And then the laugh piece is, you can't take it too seriously because there's a lot of things that are out of your control. So you've got to have that agility, that ability to be nimble in the moment when things aren't quite going the way that it should be going. So and be able to laugh at it. So yeah, Daniel, there you go. That's my sort of piece of advice would be to listen, learn, and laugh throughout the journey.
Yeah, love it, love it. By the way, I meant to ask you, I saw that in the background. People won't see this because this is audio only, but not for us because we see each other. You have some medals behind there. Did I see the Iron Man logo?
Yeah, you've got good eyesight. I tell you, yeah. That is my most recent. That's the Ironman Copenhagen last summer. It was, yeah.
The full Iron Man.
The full Ironman. I was honoured to represent one of our brands, Erdinger alcohol free. I was kitted out in there yeah, they sponsored me for the race. But yeah, it was a great event, and a lot of the people in the head office in Carlsberg came out to cheer me on. So a big thank you to them. Yeah.
And an Ironman is like, I know it's like how many kilometers swimming, like 10 or?
Ah, crikey, you're testing me now. But yeah, what is it? A 3.8.
It's a lot, a lot. It's and then it's like 100 kilometers cycling, no?
Yeah,
And then it's a marathon, no?
it's what is it? 110 miles on the bike, 112 miles on the bike, and then a full marathon to finish it off. Yeah, yeah.
And how, because this, I mean, as much as you need to be physically fit, how do you cope with it psychologically? Like when your head is it like really an internal battle, or for you it's a different thing?
Oh,
How
well,
many have you done? How many have you done?
Iron Man. I've done what, about 10 or 11 of them. So yeah, it's something that I like to put in my calendar once every 2 years. And yeah, sport is something that's been in my life, yeah, since I was born pretty much. And grew up in a family of sport. So yeah, I when those times are tough, Daniel, coming back to your question, I'll probably pull on a little bit of listen, learn, and laugh, because you got to listen to your body. You can't push it too hard, but you've got to learn from your experiences of doing these races before, and just draw on that experience and then laugh. Wear a smile. You're doing something that you actually enjoy. That's kind of my mantra when it comes down to it. I hope that.
Well, and then maybe I have to sign up for an Ironman, because all you have to do is sign up every 2 years and then be willing to learn. And maybe I'll stick to 10Ks. But well, really enjoyed this, Rich. It was really good to have you here. It didn't disappoint. I knew it would be a fun time. So thanks so much for joining. I'll leave, as I mentioned, your LinkedIn in the show notes if anyone wants to learn more about your story and your expertise, which I know is very unique. So thanks again.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a real honor. It's great to talk, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
We were talking before that you listen to some other consumer goods podcasts, so I hope that you listen more. I know you won't listen to this episode, but listen to the others, okay? We have very good ones. Thanks a lot, Rich. Thanks to our audience as well for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG, guys. Have a great day.
Content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.